attitude assumed by the body either with support during muscular inactivity or by the means of coordinated action of many muscles working to maintain stability or to form an essential basis which is being adapted constantly to the movement which is superimposed on it. Posture acronym. How to remember this? POSTURE. P is pelvis is neutral with the weight distributed evenly. O, on the whole feet. S, stable joints. T, tight abdominals. U, upright ribs. R, retracted shoulders. E, yaw over the shoulder. Types of standing position. Neutral, balance. That is the correct way to stand. Second, A is lordosis, where there is a ASIS, anterior shift. Kyphosis, where the spine, thoracic spine, is bent more convex towards the thoracic spine. The C, the flat back, where the lordotic curve is reversed. The sway back, where the thoracic is increased and along with it the anterior pelvic tilt is there, and the scoliosis, where there is a lateral deviation of the spine. The types of postures are two: inactive postures and active postures. As explained before, inactive postures are such in which the body doesn't put any effort in maintaining that position. Active position, the body needs to have muscular effort for that position maintenance. Active postures further divided into two: static postures and dynamic postures. Inactive postures include resting, sleeping. All the essential muscular activity required to maintain the life is reduced to minimum. That is for saving the energy. Second, only the essential body functions like respiration and circulation are being carried out. As we know, when we are resting or we are sleeping, the muscular activity is in the minimum. It can be used for training the general relaxation technique. Fourth, it is for the freedom of respiration. Fifth, least possible work for the heart muscle. Now, why it is least muscle work for the heart muscle? That is because already all the body organs are relaxed position, and further the heart doesn't have to give supply oxygenated blood to the muscles to overcome their activity as they are already in the resting position. The active postures, integrated actions of many muscles are required. They are of two types: static, that is stationary; dynamic, that is in motion. Static postures, a constant pattern of posture. Second, interaction of a group of muscles. As we all know, one muscle alone can't maintain a static posture. It always has to be a network of muscles that are going on with this. Third, work more or less statically. Now, when we have to maintain a static posture, the muscles should be static. If they are also in motion, we do not expect the posture to be stable. Fourth, stabilize the joints. If the joints are not stabilized, the muscle will have to exert more force. If the joints are stabilized in alignment, the muscle force to be the muscle force expenditure is quite less. Fifth, opposition to gravity and other forces. As we know, when we stand upright, our anti-gravity muscles are working such that we are able to maintain a position that is standing. Whereas the gravity will pull us down. We are standing upright, that is against gravity. So it is called the anti-gravity position. Now, preserve a state of equilibrium. If we continuously keep on moving, we will not be able to maintain a static position, and that would be equilibrium. So in order to maintain the equilibrium, the static postures are required. The dynamic postures, that is when you are in motion. Form an efficient basis of movement. Pattern of posture constantly modified. Suppose we are walking, we have a base of support, again we move, we keep on another leg, again we are moving, we keep on another leg. Every step we take, we are trying to make it more and more into equilibrium rather than falling out of equilibrium. Now, an example with this, while you are running and while you're walking, which is a more stable act? That is walking, because the base of support will be more while walking. We get more time to modify our posture during walking rather than in running, because the duration that we take for running and for the base of support to be equilibriumized, we need more time, which we are getting with walking rather than from running. Third is adjusted to meet the changing circumstances. While I'm walking and I found a manhole, I will have to jump over it. If I find a puddle, I will have to jump over it unless and until I will fall into it. So for jumping, that is a change that is met by our body according to the circumstances. Here, example, the circumstance is a puddle while you're walking in your path. What is our adjustment? That is a bigger step or a jump. That is our adjustment. So that is a dynamic posture. Fourth is keep on changing as a result of movement. Initially, you are walking on a plain ground. Suppose you have to go downstairs, then you will have to take a step. If you have to go upstairs, you will have to take a step above. So those are the changing demands of your circumstances. According to it, your body will adapt and change. All this will happen if your dynamic postures are in stability. Mechanism, it involves the muscles and the nervous control. Postural mechanism. Now, it is a very complex mechanism. The cerebral cortex, the cerebellum, red nucleus, vestibular nucleus, that is part of the CNS, will regulate our actions based on eye. We're seeing it here. We know when we have to move or not. And the joints, which will be stabilized in order to make our movement dynamic. The effector organs are the muscles. Now I'll explain this. The cerebral cortex, cerebellum, and red nucleus, in also the vestibular nucleus, which is the one which is required for the balance, will act according to the eye, ear, muscles, and joints. Now, where their effect will be seen is on muscles. So, reception means to get the stimuli is from the eyes, ears, muscles, and joints. This all information gathered from your eye, ear, muscles, and joints will be sent to the cerebral cortex, cerebellum, red nucleus, vestibular nucleus, and they will decide what kind of action the effector organs that the muscles are supposed to act so that the body posture is in equilibrium. May it be for static posture or may it be for dynamic posture. the muscles. The first receptor organs is the eye, then the ear, muscles and joints. Now we're going to learn in detail how these receptor organs are going to affect the effector organs. The muscles. Muscle work varies in intensity, distribution, both for static and dynamic postures. The pattern of movement. The physical characteristics of an individual. Fourth, the anti-gravity muscles are most employed group of muscles. Now we'll explain these points. Muscle work varies in intensity and distribution, both for static and dynamic posture. While I have assumed a standing posture that is static, I will need less amount of energy to keep maintaining that posture. If I have to run or walk, I will need more amount of energy. That is, the expenditure and the intensity of the muscle will change. Now, the distribution. During my static posture, whichever position I'm assuming, that position will have one particular group of muscles that will have the most control over it. And that will not be the case scenario with the other static posture. So there is a difference between the intensity and the distribution. The pattern of movement. Suppose I'm trying to wave my hand and suppose I'm trying to jump. Both the pattern of movements are different. If I'm jumping and I'm displacing myself, the pattern of movement is different. And if I'm waving, I'm stationary and I'm only moving a limb. So that are two patterns of movements. Third, physical characteristics of an individual. Physical characteristics involve, for example, a very tall person and a very short person. A tall person will require more amount of energy. The muscles will have more energy expenditure in order to complete a same distance in comparison to a short guy who will have the same amount of steps to be taken, but the energy expenditure and the muscle work will be quite less. Now, fourth point, anti-gravity muscles are the most employed group of muscles. As we already talked, all our movements are against the gravity. We are standing, we are walking. Every time the gravity will try to pull the body downwards, but we have to try to keep the body up. And that position to be maintained is by the anti-gravity muscles. The anti-gravity muscles. They are the most frequently employed for postural mechanism. To keep the body upright, we need the anti-gravity muscles that work against the gravity. Second, used to maintain the erect posture of the body. If I'm trying to slouch down, I'm bending my trunk and just slouch on a couch. That is not an erect posture. When you are in an erect posture, your spine will be straight and all the muscles will be pulling you upwards towards the ceiling, towards the sky. The gravity will try to pull it down, but the anti-gravity muscles are always the ones which keep you upright. So remember this, whenever you are slouching down, you are making your anti-gravity property of your muscles useless. Now, third, working to counteract the effects of gravity. As already explained, we know that gravity pulls down and the anti-gravity will do the opposite work. Fourth, action with regards to joints is usually extension. When you're slouching down, you're flexing your body. And when you try to sit straight, your whole spine will be in an extended position. Therefore, the fourth point, the action with regard to joints is usually extension. Remember one thing, whenever the joints are in extension, the joint alignment will have more effect for the stability rather than the muscle work. So whenever your joints are in alignment, the muscle work will be less. Always a good posture is something that when the alignment of the joints are proper, the muscles will be relaxed. Now, fifth point, perform action with efficiency and minimum effort. If everything is aligned, then the muscle action will be less. For example, if during a class we already are sitting in a line or in a row, the effort by the class monitor will be less. The effort by the class monitor to align the students will be less. Same way, if joints are already aligned in an aligned posture to keep your body erect, the muscle work will be quite less. So there will be the minimum effort by the muscle. Now, form of the muscles, the anti-gravity muscles are multipinate. Multipinate, as we have all studied in anatomy general, multipinate means many fibers that form a group which are well distributed and are arranged in a pattern such that a large area is covered to a centrifuge pattern. Now, they are fan shaped. Fan shaped because they have to be distributed over a large area. Now, their action is powerful. Why it is powerful? Because it is spread all over a big area. For example, we'll take gastrocnemius muscle, that is your calf muscle. That is a big muscle. It is multipinate. It has various fibers that are arranged in a centrifuge pattern with a fan shape that is spreading across a large background. And it has powerful action. When you jump, when you walk, when you climb down your stairs, when you're sprinting, every time your gastrocnemius muscles is so strong that you are able to give that kick, you're able to give that throw to your body. That is because it is able to take in the whole weight. So it is very powerful. Now, last point, most of the constituents are red fibers. We have learned red fibers and white fibers. Red fibers are those which are very fast, but they get tired faster. Now, red fibers, the capability of sustained contraction without fatigue due to the low metabolic rate of the action. Their contraction in response to stimulation is slow, but they can sustain for a considerable amount of time. Here with an example, if I give a pinprick to your muscle, the way it will respond will be slower than your fast twitch fibers. Okay. Now, for this, the latency is more. That is, the time taken for the muscle to come into action is slow. But when it comes to action, it will maintain the contraction for a longer period of time. It won't get fatigued easily because of the low metabolic rate. If someone is having high metabolic rate and energy expenditure is fast, that person will get fatigued and will get tired. In comparison to someone who has a low metabolic rate, the fatigue rate will also be slow, and that will help him to work more efficiently. Same way in red fibers, due to the low metabolic rate of action, the contraction in response to stimulate, if I stimulate, the contraction will be slow, means it won't be a fast contraction, but can be sustained for a considerable amount of time. Now, nervous control. Neuromuscular coordination. Second, appropriate muscles innervated by very complex reflex system. Neuromuscular coordination, as we all know, there is a neuromuscular junction. That neuromuscular junction is having the synapses. Whenever an action is required, the nervous system will direct the muscles to do the action. Whoever does this action faster, that is because of the synapses involved. So that neuromuscular coordination between the nervous system and the muscular system is called the neuromuscular coordination. Second, appropriate muscles innervated by a very complex reflex system. Whenever see a system, a simple act of writing with your hand and a simple act of taking your hand back from a flame, from a burning flame. Okay. Now, if I have to take a pen and write, I won't require a reflex system so fast. But if I will have to take off my hand from a burning object, that needs to be faster. So the same hand, the same muscles, but how it has to be recruited will be based on the reflex system. If the action required is faster, that will be a spinal reflex rather than somewhat in writing. In writing, my brain will instruct my arm to move in such a way that I can write, I can produce the syllables rather than when I'm taking off my hand from a burning object. So, how the muscles are recruited will be based on the circumstances that the muscles are placed in, that the body is placed. Now, the postural reflexes. A reflex and efferent response to an efferent stimulus. Efferent A will always be first. Efferent means coming inside. Efferent means leaving or giving. Something that we receive will be efferent and something which we give away will be efferent. Okay. Now, an afferent stimulus, that means a stimulus will be placed on a muscle. Now, that will have an effect. That effect is the efferent response of that stimulus. Okay. Here, efferent response, that is a motor response. The anti-gravity muscles primary effector organs. Okay. Efferent stimuli all over the body, most important receptors being situated in muscles themselves, the eyes and the ears. I'll explain this. First, always remember there will be a stimulus and there will be a response. What is the stimulus here is being collected by the muscles, the eyes and the ears. Whatever we feel, whatever my muscle has to work, or whatever I hear a command or my way of carrying out a task will all be a efferent stimuli, and how I will carry out this task will be an efferent response of my body to accomplish that task. Now, if my aim is to stand erect, first my muscles will be efficient. Second, my joints will be in proper place. My eyes will see if the place is smooth or I'm able to stand. And my ears, what do my ears do? There is a balanced vestibulocochlear system which will maintain my balance. That is by your ear. So all these systems will work in unison to form an efferent stimuli. That efferent stimuli will move to your higher centers, the brain, which involve the cortex, cerebellum, etc. And that will affect on your here. The effector response is based on the efferent stimuli. The efferent stimuli is collected by the muscles, the eyes, and the ears. And the effect is seen on the anti-gravity muscles to maintain the body in the upright position. Now, how the four are going to get coordinated to produce the efferent stimuli will be seen here. First, the muscles, the neuromuscular and the neurotendinous spindles within the muscles record the changing tension. The increased tension will give rise to stimulation of the reflex contraction of the muscles and the myotactic or the stretch reflex. I'm going to explain again. There will be an increased tension in the muscles to produce a movement or due to a stimulus. Now, that will stimulate the reflex contraction of the muscles. Suppose, like taking back my hand from a burning object, that is the reflex contraction of my muscle. And for this, the myotactic or the stretch reflex that will help me to take off my hand faster will be produced. Second, the eyes. The visual sensation records alteration in position of the body with regard to our surroundings. With an example, when we are on a high cliff or a high mountain, when we see down, which is the first response, is to take our feet away from the edge. We don't stand on the edge, we take our feedback just because we are able to see that how deep the fall can be. So we take back off our feet. Now, from receptors for rightening reflexes enable the head and body to restore themselves to the erect posture. Now, we'll take an example of a giant wheel. When we see a giant wheel, whenever it is moving or a faster movement of the giant wheel will always create a dizziness. If we close our eyes, partially the dizziness will go away, but half of the dizziness is still there. That is because of your ears. First, we closed our eyes, we are half safe because we are not able to see the motion. So we are not tilting our head according to the surroundings with the giant wheel. Third is the ear. Now, the movement of the head. You have always seen whenever you get a dizzy feeling, that is when you think that you are spinning around. The inner ear has the semicircular canals which is having a fluid, and if there is a movement of the head, this fluid will get stimulated and the stimulation of the receptors of the vestibular nerve occurs, which tells your body that it is not still in the upright posture. So whenever there is a movement of the head, the movement of the fluid will occur. Where this fluid is? In the semicircular canals which are inside the inner ear. That stimulation of the movement of the head will be a stimulus to stimulate the receptors of the vestibular nerve. So the body will know that the body is not in an upright posture. Fourth is the joint structure. The weight-bearing position that is standing, there is an approximation of the bones. The joint is in extension. As we all know, in weight-bearing position, the anti-gravity muscles, everything, it keeps the joint in the extended position. What will be the advantage of the extended position? That the muscles have to spend less amount of energy. Now, this stimulates the receptors in the joint structure. Always remember, approximate means the joint surfaces will be in close contact, and that will stimulate the receptors in the joint structure because of the compression, because of the approximation of the joint surfaces. Now, that elicits a reflex reaction to maintain the position. Now, when I know there is a certain amount of pressure on the joints throughout the posture, I will try to maintain that amount of pressure so that my position is not altered. the posture. Now, there are of two types, good posture and poor posture. You'll see the differences. Efficient, inefficient. How is it done? Efficient because it will save its energy. It won't unnecessarily spend its energy on maintaining an alignment because the joints are already doing their part and there is no effort of the muscle in trying to keep the joint together. The joints are already aligned and that gives a very appropriate position for the muscles to act, for the anti-gravity muscles to be specific. In poor posture, when we are slouch sitting or we are lazing or we are in a position where the weight is not equally distributed, then that is inefficient because the joints are not aligned one above the other and they are not able to give an efficient working background for a muscle. Second, minimum muscular effort. On the poor posture side, unnecessary muscular effort because already in alignment, so minimum effort, not in alignment, so very unnecessary muscular effort. Third is perfect alignment in static postures. The static postures will be very economical for the body, less energy expenditure, and the whole alignment will be proper. Third, faulty alignment in the static postures. Fourth is constant readjustment during the dynamic postures. We all know that during the dynamic posture, the body's alignment will keep on changing. But if the posture is good, the body will be able to easily realign themselves. And in poor posture, the body will do the faulty adjustments, which will in later run adversely affect the body. There are compensatory adjustments. Here there is readjustment in proper posture, and on the poor side there is compensatory adjustments. Because the adjustments are not proper, they cannot perform well, so they are compensating. Whenever we are not getting the best, we try to compensate and do near about faulty things and try to fit in. Same with the poor posture. There is a compensatory adjustment during the dynamic postures. Good posture, there is no energy wastage. If I need 10 Newton of force, I will use 10 Newton of force. I will not use 20. In poor posture, same way, double amount is needed. So there is an energy wastage. Both doing the same task, one will require less energy, second one will require more energy. Here we are seeing a figure, the poor posture, the good posture, and again the poor posture. Here there is a forward head. Now there is a flat back. This is a plumb line. This is a plumb line that goes directly midline to the body according to the weight distribution. This is the good posture. If we see the plumb line, both the sides are equally distributed and the whole weight is distributed on the back side and on the front side. With this, it was all more on the back side, only there was a forward head. Okay. In the poor posture, third one, this is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one. See, in the third one, what happens? The forward head is there, again rounded shoulders are there, then there is a sway back and there are weak abdominals. What is the action of the abdominals? To keep the trunk straight. Here it has kept the trunk straight. Here the abdominal muscles were weak, so they were not able to keep the trunk straight. So they have a sway back in slightly overextended position of lordotic curve. Okay. Now, good posture. We have already seen in the differences. The efficient posture is natural. The body doesn't have to try hard to maintain that posture if the body already has a good posture. Second, The essential mechanisms for maintenance and adjustments are intact and healthy. The body doesn't have to continuously remind the muscles, stay aligned, stay aligned. No, it doesn't happen here. It has already been aligned. It is habituated to be in a good posture. The chief factors, a stable psychological background. You must have always seen tensed people are walking not upright. They're always in a slouch posture. They're not confident about themselves. That is not a stable psychological background. For a good posture, you need a stable psychological background. Second, good hygienic conditions. If the body is suffering from any kind of disease or there is an infection or any such kind, that body will never walk in an upright posture. Third, plenty of natural free movement. You have seen debilitated paralytic patients. You have seen them, they won't be in an erect posture. If you try and make them sit, they will slouch, they will fall towards the gravity. They won't be able to hold themselves upright against gravity. Their anti-gravity muscles are not in work. These were the three chief factors. First is the psychological background that should be stable. Second, the hygienic conditions should be good. That is a healthy body. Third is the plenty of natural free movement. If the restriction is not there, then the posture will always be good. Now, here, the cervical, thoracic, and lumbar in the first picture, the normal alignment and the side view and the front view. The spine should have three normal curves: the cervical lordosis, thoracic kyphosis, and the lumbar lordosis. And the second image, the scoliosis is seen, sideways curvature of the thoracic spine. In the fourth image, there is a sway back posture. Then there is a flat back posture. Then there is a kyphotic posture. Now we'll see the last one. There is a kyphosis and lordosis posture. There is a curvature of the thoracic spine, which should have been neutral like the first image, but it is more towards the kyphosis and more than the required lordosis. Now the poor posture, inefficient mental attitude of the patient or the person, the poor hygienic conditions as already discussed with the good posture. Third is general debility. The person is not able to do the activities that a normal person will be able to do. Ability, debility. Okay. Ability to do the natural free movements, unable to do it, that is a debility. Now, the chronic illness, already having an illness for a longer period of time, having a disease for a longer period of time. The prolonged fatigue, very tired, I won't stand upright. I'll just slouch my back, hang my arms, that way I'll stand. But if I'm very energetic, I will stand upright. If I'm very fatigued, I will stand slouched. Okay. Now, pain, weakness, stress, and tension. These are also psychological and also physical. First is pain. If I am having a psychological pain or a headache, then my whole body will be in a poor posture pattern. Second is weakness. If some part of me or my whole body is feeling weak, I have fever, I would be standing upright. Third is stress. I'm very anxious for my exams. I'm very anxious for my homework. Then I will have stress that will result in a poor posture. Fourth is tension. Tension means you have stress. You have to complete a task in a particular period. That all gives you tension. There is an exam next day that will give you tension. And all this will have an effect on your posture. Now, if this tension, stress, weakness, and pain remains for a longer time, there will be adverse effects on your posture, which will be permanent. In beginning, it will sound that it is for a day or two or for a month or two. Then if you keep this behavior going on, it will be for a longer period. Last one is faulty idea of good posture. Okay, everyone's telling me to stand upright. I'm generally strong, I'm not having a chronic illness, I'm not fatigued, then I will have to stand straight. So you are making your body, forcing your body to stand in a posture which it is not adjusted to, or what is not in habit. That will give a faulty idea of good posture. You will think that all your joints are in extension, your anti-gravity muscles are working, everything is perfectly. But if your body is not used to that position, that will give a faulty idea of good posture. That is an inefficient pattern of voluntary efforts. The muscle is continuously asking the body to stand upright, stand upright, stand upright, sit upright. Every action you do, constantly the muscles have to be in work, because the joints are not doing their work, they're not in stable position, but you know that you have to do, and so you're trying to do it continuously. That is a voluntary effort to maintain a good posture, which will in turn result into a poor posture, because the first condition of good posture was minimum effort, and in faulty idea the effort will be maximum. Now, how it affects your body: the good posture and the bad posture. Good posture prevents back pain, because back pain of the muscles, already the joints are in alignment. The joints are in alignment, so there is not an unequal distribution of weight, so that there will be no pain. Now, in bad posture, there will be low back pain. Okay, low back pain. Why? Because continuously the muscles are trying to maintain into a proper position, but the joints are giving away. Okay. Second, maintain proper muscle and joint usage. When the joints are working, the muscles have to work less. In the other side, there will be shoulder pain, because muscles are only working. Neck pain, muscles are only working, because there is no proper alignment of the joints. Then there are frequent headaches. Why headache? Because continuously the muscle is telling your body to stand straight, stand straight, stand straight. There is a stress that will make your body fall into that stress. Now, prevent the spine in a good posture, prevent the spine from forming into abnormal positions. Which were the abnormal positions? The kyphosis, the lordosis, sway back, flat back, scoliosis. All those were abnormal positions, because the good posture body knows what is a good posture and is able to maintain it. In the poor posture, there will be TN joint dysfunction, the bone spurs, because unequal weight distribution. Then intervertebral disc damage, obviously, because the spine is not aligned, the disc space is not proper. There will be a wedging, there will be decrease, increase, continuously in tension inside the disc. Then there will be fibrotic scar tissue, because already a pain is there. Then your muscle tries to keep it in upright position. The scar tissue will stretch and will not be able to heal itself. So there will be a fibrotic scar tissue. Then you're on the good posture side, your center of balance, because in a very equilibriumized state, it will be in equilibrium. So that will maintain your balance. Second, it will reduce stress, because the body does not have to continuously keep on stressing it. Then promote the efficiency. As we have already discussed, it should be efficient. Other side, it won't be much efficient. Your muscles, joints, and bones are being used optimally. No one part is being used more than the other. Second, high blood pressure on the poor posture side, because continuously to maintain that position. Then encourage the confidence and good moral, because the body is confident about the good posture, So they will be more confident and of good moral. Last year is breathing problems. You're seeing on the right side, it's already the lungs are not efficient enough because of the position, and there will be breathing problems and there will be fatigue. Why fatigue? Already the body is using much more amount of energy than that is required. Establishment of a good posture does not emerge as a result of adjustment. Where was the adjustment? In poor posture. Here it is not adjustment. Now, built up gradually and progressively from complete relaxation. Then there is a state of balanced tension, much concentration required at first, and then the effort and tension are progressively reduced by repetition. First time you're doing a task, you will have more stress on it. You will take more effort. First time you're going from home to school, there will be more effort. Every day you're doing the same thing, you will require less effort because first, the way you know, and second, how to go to school, that is easy for you and that is repetitive. Now the pattern is simplified and becomes more efficient. The sequential passage of coordination impulses on the neuromuscular pathways is facilitated. After sufficient repetition means we are repeating it quite many times and with precision because practice makes a man perfect. So while trying to perfect it, the new and satisfactory patterns of posture become habitual. It no longer requires voluntary control. Continuously, the muscles don't need to demand it to keep into action. Then, maintained by a conditional reflex. The body knows what to do and so it will do. So, that is a conditional reflex. That is occurrence reinforced by presentation of an unconditional stimulus. If I know that food comes to my plate, I will start thinking about food. Thinking about food will continuously start the salivation in my mouth. Every time I see food, either I have to eat it or not eat it, there will be an stimulus, that is food, and there will be a response, that is salivation. Now, when the time comes without that stimulus, without the food coming, it's 1 o'clock, I'll start salivation. That is because that is an unconditional stimulus now because of the repetition and the precision of the repetition. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumya. That was a very